Rebecca Mesay is in her second year at St. FX University and is studying political science and development studies. During her first year at St. FX, she was a part of the Social Justice Colloquium, a program that requires students to think critically about issues within their community and beyond. She has been involved with the Office for Students of African Descent and X Project, where she agitates for the voices and needs of minority students to become a part of primary university discourse. She is also a part of the Young Women's Empowerment Society and the Women's and Gender Studies Student Societies. In April 2016, Rebecca was chosen as one of 4 students to be a part of the McKenna Youth Leaders Exchange in Haiti, where she learned about youth activism and grassroots development. After completing a directed study on intersectional and feminist leadership in Haiti, Rebecca presented her findings to the Hive for Feminist Research, marking the first time a student presented to this group. This past year, Rebecca, along with 3 of her colleagues, established the Academic Success for All program for student athletes. Rebecca continues to work toward greater equity and social justice at all levels of student life at St. FX. Please join me in welcoming Rebecca for the delivery of her X Talk, entitled The Dangerous Silence of Conformity.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's my honor to be here on the inauguration of the John C. Friel X Talks. I'm so excited to talk to you guys all about my understanding of justice, and by extension, our collective understanding of justice. Now, Emily has already done a very good job of recognizing that we are on the unceded and ancestral territory of the Mi'kmaq people. We have to understand that these came through the treaties of peace and reconciliation signed by the Mi'kmaq and Maliseet, along with the British Crown, that continue to establish and to outline the ongoing relationship between nations that we enjoy today. Seeing as it is also going to be African Heritage Month in February, I would also like to recognize that we are standing also on the territory of the African Nova Scotians, who have called this land their home for the last 300 years. I'm especially grateful to these 2 communities because I understand that it is through their pain and their displacement that I've had the opportunity to pursue an education here at St. FX, so I would like to thank them. Now allow me to reintroduce myself. My name is Rebecca Mesay, and I am the proud immigrant child of refugees. After everything that my parents went through, they ensured that they knew the incredible amount of privilege my siblings and I had in growing up in Canada. They always told us, don't you ever take the opportunities that you have in this country for granted, because we never had them. They were also exceptionally brave and courageous, and they always, without fail, would intervene in situations that they deemed to be unjust or unacceptable. Much to my own mortification growing up. I once made the mistake of asking my mother, why is it you always have to say something? And she said to me, well, if I don't say anything, who do you expect will? And my father added to that. He said, what exactly are you afraid of? In a world like we live in one as dangerous as this one, you cannot afford to not speak out. You won't lose anything by saying something, but by staying quiet, you allow that injustice to take place again and again. Needless to say, in a few years' time, I would soon be the source of my friends' and my siblings' mortification as I spoke out on every opportunity. When I first came to St. FX, I experienced a number of shocks. One of the first being what I perceived to be the utter lack of diversity of the university population. The second was the extent to which and the manner in which university students consumed alcohol, something I found is common in all universities, who would have thought? And the third was the culture of conformity, upon which I had witnessed on many occasions, even within my first month at St. FX. I believe this is in part because we are a small town in rural Nova Scotia, And we're a very concentrated and energetic group of people with only a few activities available to us outside of the university campus. However, I also believe that this has in part to do with the homogeneity of the university population. I found this to be especially true when we were examining both the race and the social class of the vast majority of the students who decided to come here. I mean, it was the first time I'd met so many people with the same last name that were not related. Many of the people who come to St. FX are often of the second or third generation in their families to do so. And certainly the tradition of St. FX is one to be celebrated and one to talk about. However, for those people like myself who are the first in their families to come to St. FX, it can often be very daunting and intimidating to constantly talking about this. I often like to describe my first few months at St. FX as a diaspora experience. For those of you who may not be familiar with the word diaspora, it is the establishment of a group of people in a land or territory that are not their ancestral lands or territories. Now, I understand the irony in me, a real-life diasporan, saying this to you, but allow me to contextualize. When I first came to St. FX, I found that I could not identify with the mainstream, meaning the white Canadian culture that I found myself so utterly surrounded by. I am, as I mentioned previously, the immigrant kid of Ethiopians, and I was raised in a very Ethiopian household, despite having grown up in Canada. And for this reason, I found I could not relate to a lot of the behaviors that were exhibited by my peers and really had no interest in joining in. This being said, I did not entirely fit in with all my international student friends because it seemed to me that they had this understanding, a wisdom that I, by virtue of having grown up in a place that had shielded me from the harshest realities of the world, had yet to attain. So here I was, 1 decade after having found my niche in the northeast of Calgary among my kindred, feeling as though I was once again 8 years old, a feeling of culture shock and of displacement, and one that many of my international student friends had come up to me and expressed on many occasions. See, whereas I had 18 years of living in a place that did not reflect me and where I didn't see people like myself reflected wherever I go, they for the first time were living in a place where the dominant culture was not their own. So where did it leave us? Those of us who could not conform by factors that were completely out of our control. Why is it that an institution that had existed for 200 years had created this mold of what a student was supposed to be, but nobody had questioned it or asked why it had existed in that sense for so long? And why is it that this happened so easily, that we were feeling othered, to the extent that the video We Are St. FX was released without even one visible minority in its video? The danger of conformity is this. It works insidiously. It does not make people question what is directly in front of them. It allows individuals to hide their identity in a larger group so they do not have to take responsibility for their actions. And it keeps them from posing questions, from asking. Because that's how it's always been. And that's how it'll always be. So why bother? This type of mentality is especially troubling on a university campus. It is our role as an academic institution to question what is happening in greater society, to create solutions, and then to try and overcome these challenges. It is only the idea of accountability that can destroy the idea of conformity and then allow to create a path that will then agitate for justice. I believe firmly that who we are today in this moment is a result of how we grew up, of the experiences that we've had, and in the decisions that we've made. I also believe that these are the elements that will most influence our own and our personal understandings of what justice is and what a just environment will look like, and then how this will manifest itself each and every day. Like I said, St. FX has been in existence for nearly 200 years, and it is only through our own action that we can push for a more just and equitable campus. As a university, we need to stop being compliant, and we must be willing to examine the dark spots in our history. We must admit where we were and where we are at fault. And this is especially true when we're talking about having reconciliation between our Mi'kmaq and our African Nova Scotian communities. And as students, we have to be challenged to stop conforming to this idea of what the university wants us to be, and instead make the university conform to the idea of what we want and what we will it to be. The first step, I believe, is to say this out loud. I'll go first. In my mind, St. FX will be a place where I'm reflected in and among my peers, my professors, and the university administration without a mirror, where I will not feel more displaced at my rightful spot at a scholarship dinner than I do on a court, even though I don't play basketball, where I won't have to combat questions about why my hair is so curly and why I speak English so well, where my friends who come from different countries are not asked if they live in mud huts and in straw houses, where I can jog past any building on this campus without fear of hearing, "Run, nigger, run," yelled after me, because that happened. A place where I can be the Black, Swedish, Ethiopian, Canadian feminist that I am, with an afro or braids depending on my choice. And I can be all of this proudly, unapologetically, and without even the smallest hint of worry. This is my definition of justice. Thank you.